Whatever you think.
Good evening, fellow commissioners, staff, audience, and people at home. I'd like to welcome you all to the November 3rd, 2014 City Commission meeting. And at this time, we'll call it to order. And it's our honor to have invocation by Pastor Sam McVeigh at New Life. Will you come forward?
Good evening, guys. Thanks so much for your service. Let's pray. Father, we thank you in Jesus' name this night for, especially I'm thankful for the impact of the gospel on our nation. Thank you for the impact on our state and our city. Thank you for the love of righteousness and freedom and respect for one another that is at the base of what we do here. And so I pray for wisdom for these that have sacrificed so much. Pray for your grace upon them. I pray for your blessing on the meeting. Pray for blessing on our community. We thank you for what's happened to this point and pray for a good future. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Pastor.
Okay, we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have no proclamations for this evening, so we will move into personal appearance, and it's our honor to have the Chamber of Commerce here this evening, the President and Executive Director, so if they'd like to come forward.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I'm Katie Runyon. I am the 2014 El Dorado Chamber of Commerce President this year, located at 201 East Central. I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to visit tonight and speak to you just a little bit. The Chamber's been pretty busy this year. We've had lots of activities and events and those kind of things. I just wanted to bring a couple of things to our audience at home to remind you guys and to invite you. This weekend is the Celebration of Freedom. In fact, I think tonight is the ice cream social at the high school. And then Saturday is the biscuits and gravy feed and parade and those kind of things. So I wanted to invite you all to come to that. A couple other things. We've got Small Business Saturday downtown and all over El Dorado. We're partnering with Main Street for that event. And, well, it's not really an event, but just to encourage our community to come out and support our local businesses. So we'd like to invite you to come down and do that. And then also we have an annual event, January 29th. We wanted to invite you all to come and see us and participate with us. January 29th, Thursday, I think it's at 6-ish. So we'd like to invite you all for that. But at this point, what I really came here to do was introduce you to Susie Carson. She's our executive director. She has some information about an opportunity for our community that the Chamber Board is kind of looking into and pursuing, and we kind of feel that it's a benefit for our business community, and we're interested in partnering with our local businesses in the city of El Dorado for that. And so I'd like to introduce you to Susie Carson.
Hi, my name is Susie Carson. I'm the director of the El Dorado Chamber of Commerce. As Katie said, I just wanted to invite you guys all to an informational meeting, which will be held on an e-accelerator program. We have invited our partner organizations to attend this meeting and wanted to extend that to you guys. With the paper I just gave you, it's going to give you the details of the meeting date. Plus, it's going to give you a little bit of background on what exactly an e-community is, which is something that the Chamber is looking into. And it's also going to give you a little more history on the groups that we would be working with who'd be coming into this informational meeting. The Advancing Rural Prosperity is a group, and then, of course, Network Kansas. This is a state-ran program. I've also tried to do my due diligence, and I've talked to a couple other cities, I believe 9 or 10, who are currently involved in this program. And I believe on those papers I provided, that's their name along with their position. So if any of you would like to reach out and speak with them, that's kind of who I've spoke to. Again, this meeting is just informational. I'm not saying it's something we should absolutely do, but I do believe it's something worth looking into. So I'd just like to invite you guys to that if you're interested in coming.
Awesome.
That That is it.
You said-
Any questions?
You said something about partnering. Was there, who are we going to be partnering with?
We have so far, we would like to invite you guys. We've also invited El Dorado Inc., and we've invited El Dorado Main Street. And then, of course, their presidents and all the directors there. I really feel we're all working towards the same goal, and the more we can all get on the same path, the farther I think we'll all advance. So,
So the E-Accelerator program is an opportunity to use the resources of Network Kansas and, what was the other?
what it is exactly is looking into an e-community. You can't exactly be an e-community without an e-accelerator. They're attached, so to speak. An e-community is, and I'd love to talk on this more in depth if you guys are interested, but an e-community is where you would potentially sell tax credits to businesses for state income tax level. So it doesn't actually, it's not at the local level. This is a state-ran program. With that, this would provide gap coverage. It would also provide the opportunity for businesses to advance. This e-accelerator, what that is we would be partnering with Network Kansas and Advancing Real Prosperity. They would come down and coach us, so to speak. We would be doing a survey of El Dorado, the demographics, seeing what gaps we have, if any gaps there are, seeing what the community is made up of, what they want. And then with that, we would take that information, of course, develop a strategic plan, and then the e-community would be along with that. The mentoring would be someone from Real Advancing Prosperity who's been working with businesses for a long time, who would come down and help us through this, so to speak. So at least be there, I guess, to guide us along the way, because it is a state program, and they want to make sure that it's ran the way it was intended.
And with y'all's discussion last meeting about business development, this seemed like, I asked Susie to come and talk to you about it, because it seemed to me like it was exactly what kind of you were talking about, developing opportunities and creating programs to,
Proactively kind of,
right? And this seemed, and so I thought that you'd probably want to hear about it and at least hear round one.
so your informational meeting is November 19th?
That's correct.
At noon at the chamber offices?
November 19th at noon, absolutely.
And I just want to say real quick, aside, as a citizen and the feedback I've been hearing in the community, I appreciate, I've sat through several meetings with you, Susie, recently, where I know you have made a really big effort to kind of reevaluate if it makes sense for the chamber to be involved with some things and what you could be doing to be more efficient moving forward. And I've heard that from several people, that they feel like the chamber's going in a positive direction. And so
Thank you.
keep up the good work. And
Thank you.
I'd encourage anyone that has any interest to be a part.
So are they, as we move forward with this, or is this E-Accelerator, for this e-community program, are they going to look back at any previous studies that we've done in the past, or they're going to do a whole new business, kind of a business environment study, or?
I think that'd be a good information or question to ask them when they come. That's why I definitely think, I am new. I'm in this position, and I have tried, like I said, to look into some of the past things have done, and I am aware that I guess we just did a study about 10 years ago. Is that correct? So I think that is something that we should bring up at this informational meeting and, see what they say. So, but we are interested in the e-community, and this e-accelerator is a part of the e-community, if we want that part of it. This isn't even something that we have to do.
Sure.
So,
I think it's great.
Susie, I'd say thank you. I looked at this list, they all recommend it. I'm surprised we haven't done it before now. Great Men in Leavenworth and Emporia and Liberal and McPherson.
Yeah, I think this is awesome and
Just having the
proactive.
conversation. Just the conversation. That's a wonderful thing, and that's all
Yeah.
we can do right now until we figure out what suits us best. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thank you for your
Thank
work.
you.
thank
You're
you
awesome.
both.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for the public comment section. Is there anybody present like to come forward and have any good things about El Dorado? Okay.
Hey, wait a minute, don't sit back down.
How are you, Jim?
Good.
James Powell, 323 West Carr. I have one question about our videos on YouTube. I noticed that you're not able to comment on them. Kind of defeats the purpose of social media. and openness of government if we're not allowing the citizens to comment. And I know it's not a big deal to a lot of people, but I think it can be a very useful tool for the city if people are watching it on YouTube, which I rather enjoyed watching some of these meetings. And being able to comment on things and questions that we have, and those are questions that can easily be brought back to the city council. So that's,
Do you think that someone made a choice not to allow it?
that is.
Is it normal on YouTube?
It is normal. It is a choice that's made by the administrator of
Okay.
that channel on whether or not to
And
allow
it's-
comments.
And you can make changes. Whoever set that up for us can go out there and just change the preferences if we want to
Yeah.
allow, I mean,
It's 2 clicks
to
of
allow
a mouse.
comments. I don't see why we wouldn't. I
Yeah.
think that's great.
So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that what we want to do? Doesn't make any
I'm
difference.
okay with it as long as people
And I think,
register, use their name, keep it clean.
Absolutely.
I
If
mean, that's
they
my
don't-
thing.
if
If
they
they're
don't-
not gonna keep it clean, then
Well-
I'm cool with.
well, and I think
If they don't identify themselves,
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of
I
it.
don't
our
like people
norm
hiding behind a
already,
keyboard.
our norm already is if it's inappropriate,
Yeah,
we take it down as soon as we see
and that's
it.
what I mean, it'd just be one more thing for us to monitor.
So you know, they're in the settings, they do have a setting that says no profanity. So any profanity that goes up will automatically be deleted.
Okay,
It's already programmed. Google did a great job on that. So
okey doke.
there you go.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James.
Is there
As
any
long as we
added,
got that in place, I'm cool with it.
is there any added cost at all?
No.
I think it's a switch.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's just a
that's,
switch, and you can set your content preferences. It's all customizable. If you need any help, just holler.
okay. Well, and I think the person who was most integral with it is on maternity leave. But maybe she's bored by now. It's been 3 days. On the website. Oh, you think this is different? So that's a Darcy thing or a Ken thing? Okay, well, he's not on maternity leave. So,
Well, that's good to hear.
I bet we can fix that.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, next on the agenda is consent agenda. You guys got any questions on any of that?
I didn't.
I did not. There was some, I went through it.
I've got somebody emailed it to her, and we'll talk about
Okay. Did you?
it late this afternoon, so.
Okay. I was caught up at one point in
Yeah.
the day. I'll get you.
Okay, whenever you get time.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the consent agenda as presented be approved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are ready for agenda item number 3, the NRP renewal discussion.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, tonight we wanted to introduce some draft ideas for the renewal of the NRP. We discussed this a couple months back, and staff has been working on some ideas to integrate on the renewal of our NRP program. A little background, the NRP started in El Dorado in 1996. It was last revised in 2011, and it expires January 1st of 2015. So a few changes in here. Thought about the concept of, I have up on the computer screen there, our current NRP area. And these shaded areas are all areas within the NRP district. These properties within those shaded areas are eligible for tax rebates up to 95% of the improvements they make on the property. Currently, for 10 years, yeah, thank you, Herb. And currently, any new residential that goes up in town has a 5-year, 95% rebate up to $175,000. Really kind of was thinking about residential. I'll start off with residential. And got to thinking about the state and the condition of a lot of the housing in El Dorado. As you all are aware, there's a lot of properties outside of that current NRP district that are in need of some repair, upgrades, just some general overall upkeep. So we thought about the idea of, instead of maybe tying this plan to a defined area, just to put a date of the structure on there. So in this draft proposal, what kind of concept we're presenting tonight, we have language in there that says any real property that was constructed before 1970 and located within the city of El Dorado, regardless of location, shall be eligible for a 10-year tax rebate. Now, maintenance things like painting the house, putting a new roof on, aren't going to have impact on your appraised valuation of your home, so there won't be a real impact on any rebate. We're really hoping to target homes that are in need of major renovation, major repair, and get some of these places fixed up. Then we wanted to concentrate on infill. That's something I think, as you are all aware, is in the city's best interest a lot of times to regenerate and revigorate some growth in existing residential neighborhoods. So in this draft proposal is language that any residential real property being constructed on a vacant lot that was previously developed, requires demolition, or is considered infill, will be eligible for a 10-year rebate up to $175,000. So that would be any of our established neighborhoods, established platted parcels that have had a home on them, currently have a home that needs to be demolished, would be eligible for a 10-year $175,000 rebate, up to $175,000 rebate to develop that property. Those first two that I spoke of, we would like to consider this to run for a 5-year period. So the plan would be intact from January 1st of 2015 to December 31st of 2019. Then we get to what we coined as trying to get some new residential development going back in 2010. We saw a huge drop-off in new development in newly platted parcels. So at that time, we added an incentive for any new home in El Dorado that was built to be eligible for that up to $175,000. What we have in this draft plan tonight is for that to run for 1 year, and then of course at any time could be reconsidered by you all. And then we get into non-residential properties. We want to look at these a little differently, again with removing the map, but really concentrate on what the state statute requirements of a neighborhood revitalization program are. And those deal with condemned properties, properties that have health and safety issues, properties that are in blighted areas, buildings that are 25 years or older that are dilapidated. We want to be able to help some of those non-residential properties out that could be eligible for a rebate on their improvements. So we have language in there that say all non-residential properties that meet the requirements of being a dilapidated structure in a blighted neighborhood that can be condemned are eligible. And we also say all non-residential real improved property in the city of El Dorado would be eligible for 5 years. Another requirement of being a non-residential property would that it would need to meet the grant programs established and qualified by the city of El Dorado. So to be eligible for a rebate, if you're a non-residential building, you would have to prove to us some sort of shortfall, gap in funding. Again, also having to be in a blighted area that you would qualify for some sort of incentive. I think by maybe manipulating this, our plan in this manner, it makes it a little easier for staff to manage this. We did have a meeting last week with Butler County USD 490 and the junior college, the administrators from those entities, discuss some of our concepts and let them review our plan, just in kind of preparation of what we were thinking. We did let them become aware, make them aware that after this meeting, we'd kind of get some input from you all and then forward some more ideas, so they're involved in this process as well throughout this period.
And you invited 375.
Yeah, 375 was unable to attend, but we have a meeting scheduled later this week. Any questions?
Does this affect the, and/or is the new homes being built, do they still have some tax abatement at this time?
They do. In this draft, we're continuing that for another year, so that would expire in December 31st of 2015,
Up for review or renewal every year.
at your discretion.
So then what was the 5-year part that would expire in 2019?
That would be for, that would be non-residential. Anything that's non-residential in nature, we'd want to consider that for a 5-year rebate.
And this is encompassing basically the city limits of El Dorado instead of picking out certain parts, correct?
Correct.
And even it's citywide construction for 5-year 185. That's the annual. The 10-year 1970s or older, it's 5 years. It's not annual. Is that correct?
Yeah, that plan would run for 5 years.
So it's just the thing you invented when our housing collapsed. That's the annual piece. That's been the annual piece
Since
you
09.
started it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 18 months maybe once, and so, but mostly it's been annual renewal.
We had an opportunity to talk about this pretty extensively at the last ad hoc housing committee meeting, and the recommendations from staff, we did talk about those and really came up with some of those at that committee meeting, and it's good information to review for sure, and then get an opportunity to come back with some questions if we don't have any additional questions tonight.
If the other taxing entities are not willing to be in this, we can just go about it on our own and just take the city tax off, correct?
We could. At least from the administrators, we heard support last week on pretty much all the aspects of this program. There was one of the entities that showed some concern about the new houses in new subdivisions, that provision. I think it's going to be key to be able to describe the shortfall of housing that we have. We don't have any new homes. For the last 5 years, we've averaged about 4 new homes a year. There is some good news here lately. We did get 5 homes requested to be part of the spec housing program, so that was great news last week. So it bumped us up a little bit this year. And the other key thing is, you know, this isn't taking anything out of the pockets immediately as far as tax revenue. It's getting new homes built, places for people to live, people paying utilities, paying specials, because those specials aren't rebated, and getting some of these new developments that the city has invested in, as well as the developers, get them going.
But the proposed NRP also really speaks to infill and opportunities to hopefully fix some of the areas that may not have always fallen within the 10-year abatement, but to be able to tear property down and start over and get that tax rebate. I think is a good opportunity. We've talked about it a lot lately. Infill and kind of revitalizing those neighborhoods, but, kind of breathing some life back into some of our aging neighborhoods where we know that there's great opportunities to live and nice properties. It just gives an opportunity to try and breathe some life back into that.
Yes, sir. In our current plan, taking away these boundaries, our current plan that we're under now, and we have been under since '96 with revisions here and there, has allowed us to go outside of that defined district for certain reasons. A condemned structure, a home that burnt that was going to be rebuilt. The building official had some power to, and the city manager had some power to put those type of properties in the program if determined that they met the criteria in the rest of the plan, and it was for the better, greater good of the community.
And this just puts a date certain on when you're eligible throughout the city, so it is a little more liberal. But, I think Scott made a good point. If you have a house burned down or it could be condemned, or is condemned, then you can get 10 years today. And we have approved some of those. I don't know that I've seen any lately, but but I had a bunch, when I first came, I had a bunch because we didn't, to condemn a piece of property, took action by the commission, and it was messy, and so I kind of changed it where if we could condemn it, if the fire marshal or the building inspector thinks that it should be condemned and we just haven't gone to the trouble to condemn it, and they want it in, and then we've let it in.
So if I understand this right, there are certain parts of town that get a 10-year, and then there are the rest of the town that just can get a 5-year with the right types of remodeling or fixing up.
Correct.
And they only get a tax abatement on what they fixed up.
Correct. And anywhere in town that is considered infill or redevelopment of a previously developed lot would be eligible for a 10-year.
So they'd get a 10-year,
Yes.
which is above and beyond what a new house built in a new addition would be.
Correct.
Twice as much.
Okay. And is the tax abatement land excluded? In other words, if you did an infill, land's worth, let's say $6,500, is the property taxed and then the house is tax-free? Or
Yeah, there would be land
that's what
value.
the 95 and the 85 is covering, is kind of covering the tax on the land?
No, the 5% is covering administration fees from the county. The county keeps that 5%.
Okay. So how about the land?
The lands, say you build an infill home that was $80,000, your lot was valued at $5,000. Well, they're looking at $75,000. So you get rebated 95% of
You do a
$75,000.
baseline before they start,
Before
right?
they start, yeah.
So if they're adding on to the house, they do a baseline before the addition.
Now, here's a issue that we're working on with the county. If your house burned down February 1st and you pulled a building permit on May 1st, there's nothing there. Then your margin is, let's say your house burned down, it was worth 40, and you're building new, so it's worth 50, and those are really bad numbers. Let's say it was worth 100, and you're gonna build new, and it's now gonna be 150. Your abatement would be on the 50, and so we're trying to work out with the county that if your house burns down on February 1st, they shouldn't have to wait till January 2nd to pull a building permit because you've been reappraised. So we're working with the county on that so that it's the value when you pull the permit, not the value as of January 1 of that year. And so we're trying to work through that problem with the county right now.
Well, I've always believed that it was kind of unfair to have, and when this first started, not that it was a bad program, but it was unfair, you know, if you lived 100 feet the wrong side of that line, you were screwed, even though your neighborhood's just as old, just as in need. And I've always thought that citywide should be done instead of trying to make it only a core downtown or just picking areas. So I'm happy we're moving forward this direction because unfortunately we do have an old town that stretches not only to Star Street or Gordy or whatever street it stops at. It stretches all the way over the top of Summit and heads on over to Orchard, and sometimes on a little farther than that. So I think long-term, it'll pay itself. It's one of the things I think Mike's been trying to talk about on getting things pushed to make the interior of the core of the city newer, better, cleaner, nicer structures. And that's really hard to do from the government standpoint, and this is probably the best way to get to there. So I'm very much in favor for citywide versus spot areas, and if you were fortunate to be there.
Yeah.
Everybody notice on the old program we had, it says to allow to petition the city manager include the program, to be included in this program. How many petitions have you got in the last couple of years on this?
You know, I don't think any houses. I think I have gotten a couple commercial properties, and when I reviewed them, it was, if it was eligible for either constitutional tax abatement or IRB tax abatement because of the use, then I let it in, and if it wasn't, I didn't. And so I think, I can only remember one for sure that I did, and that was, it was industrial, and I did it. Oh, and I'll tell you, there was another one that we did, and it, again, there was requirements to tear down some old structures built into it. So again, it was kind of like Scott said, I mean, there's got to be a reason to put it in. And that was my defining criteria. If you could get 100% from the state and make us do more work, then I let you in and did less. But it's not something that happens very often.
Yeah. That's something, well, did you say the county, everybody's on board with this, basically, except for who?
One of the entities showed a little concern about new housing and new developments.
We need to be sure and point out how many we've actually used versus other places. So I would think we should be entitled to this.
Well,
And we're doing them a favor. We're doing all the work. They're not losing any taxing, and they're gonna benefit from this long-term.
and I think that
We need to be
part of-
proactive on this with it.
And that's, if you read the paper, you've seen that the college has asked some questions about other entities. El Dorado has a long history of having meetings and having discussions and getting input from those stakeholders in advance and not mailing them one and telling their board to approve it. And so and being fully engaged, and so being part of that discussion on the front end. So I think we're being proactive. I hope it'll go fine, but we always have been, and I feel pretty good about it, and I truly think that I can see I've been to the college board and talked to them about it before, I can see me going back and talk to them again, or Scott or someone. And so, you know, this isn't just an El Dorado thing. This is, those stakeholders have a part at the table. And when I talked to President Kroll, her thing was a uniformity. Her concern she was hearing, I think, from her board was being uniform. And I told her, just bring it up and talk about it. You may remember that was one of the big points the county made 6 years ago. And so they wanted all of them to look alike. And they got them to all look alike until the recession, and then they all changed to meet those special needs. And so encouraged them to talk about anything, and I think that's what's gone on, and they're a part of the process. And so I think that's important. They need to be part of that talk. And so that's kind of what we've done. But 490's been positive. They see the benefit. I think one of y'all said something. I mean, one of the big benefits is puts kids in schools. And so let's utilize our facilities we have and get them here and living, and they'll discover what a wonderful community we have.
Want to make sure when they sit down and talk, President Kroll, that they understand all the ramifications. That's why it'd be nice if one of you guys was there to make sure that they don't miss anything, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because if we don't get everybody on board, this kind of waters this program down.
Right.
Yeah, and
So we need everybody on board is what we need.
they are aware and are looking at December meetings, scheduling the city of El Dorado to represent our NRP proposal to them in December meetings.
And I think with Tom having been here, and he was here for part of the discussion when y'all changed it after the recession, he'll be very familiar with it, and I can't help but think that that'll be good for their trustees, that one of them has been there, done that from you all's side of the table. So I feel good about that too.
And if you all wouldn't mind, I'd like to send a draft out to all of the administrators so they could start reviewing it, or would you like another week maybe to review this?
I feel pretty confident with it.
No, I'm cool with it.
I'm good with the draft.
Thank you.
I've been waiting for it to happen.
We would await any comments, questions, changes, any proposed ideas. Like to maybe consider the second meeting in November if you're all ready. Pass that kind of on to Herb if you're ready by then, but if not, we still have some time.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, agenda item number 4, Sales Tax Committee appointment.
You can do it.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, in December, we will be appointing the Sales Tax Committee for 2015. The committee gives recommendation to the City Commission on how they will spend the excess sales tax monies each year. We need 1 representative from each of the commissioners and 2 from the mayor. If you could provide those either at the next meeting or via email to me, I would appreciate it, and we will formally appoint them in December. Any questions?
And you all know who your appointments, we sent that out, didn't we, or no?
The appointments last year,
Yeah.
actually, no, I don't think we did.
We can get it, we'll
Yeah,
get it out to you if you
I'd
don't
have to get them. I
remember.
don't think I can remember.
I
But
remember.
If everybody remembers, I won't worry about it.
I remember.
I think Ashley Rodel was Chase's, Ryan Murray was Bill's,
Frank and Marcia. was
yeah,
one.
Frank and Marcia for the mayor,
Don't remind me, I know.
yeah. And did you have Simon last year? Yeah. So those were your appointments last year, and
And I guess at this point, I'd sure encourage anybody watching at home that has an interest in this, call any of us, you know, that, This is, really shows you what sales tax does, and this is a way that you can have an input. So if you're interested, please call us.
And it's unique in my experience of a way that sales tax is spent. And some of y'all have heard me say it before, but part of our ability to weather the recession came from sales tax being spent like this instead of like lots of places that spend it as it comes in. And so you'll budget, say that you're even conservative and budget the prior year's actual. You know, tons of cities did not see prior year's actual in 2009. And so if you plan, and then if you budgeted an increase, which is, some cities do that too, based on norms, sales tax is highly volatile. It's not like property tax. And so it does respond to consumer spending. And so this is a good law. If you're conservatively minded with the way you behave physically. So I like it.
Okay, anything else on that?
Nope.
Gentlemen? Okay, next item on the agenda is new business, discussion items.
I could go real quick.
Okay.
I've been out of town for 2 weeks, so I don't have much. But I did get an email. I requested some more information from two folks from League about, there's a few cities that have started utilizing the town hall social media setup. And I would just encourage staff, I'll pass that along to you, Tabitha, so you kind of have the information. But maybe in staff, if you guys will keep kind of an open mind to that in the next issue we have at hand, that maybe that would be appropriate to try that with. I'd like to see maybe some of the commission and department heads getting in on that. We actually schedule that and promote that with Julie and then kind of all be engaged. So really that's the only thing, if you guys will just kind of keep that in the back of your mind during staff meetings, and we
And
can.
isn't that what Brad was talking about?
I think maybe.
I mean, just the people that I've talked to who utilize it, once they got it kind of set up and going and promoted the right way, it's been pretty efficient. And so anyways, that's
Okay.
all I had tonight.
Just a couple of quick things. So we talked at the last meeting a little bit about bike lanes, and I was wondering if you guys had a chance to look at that, some kind of low-hanging fruit to maybe capitalize on.
Yep,
bike
we did.
lanes.
And I think a year or two ago, we came to the commission and you authorized some routes, and we're going to show you that map tonight. And then some signage.
I apologize. For some reason, it only wants to show half of my aerial image of the city, but kind of get a general idea. We looked at roads that we thought interconnected neighborhoods throughout the community and main thoroughfares and roads that were wide enough to accommodate a dedicated bike lane. So the roads that could accommodate a dedicated bike lane would be any of these roads in pink. You see Towanda Avenue here, you see 3rd Avenue there, a portion of Summit, and onto the North Country Club Road. Now with doing a dedicated bike lane, we would have to put some on-street parking restrictions on those roads. The rest of the blue areas, what we'd like to do is signs similar like this, just reminding the traveling public, share the road, this is a designated bike route. There are signs that can be combined with this that would go underneath a square that say bike route, basically bike route, because a trail would be for sole bicycle use.
I think you're also gonna start seeing, do you have the little picture of the 3 foot, it's the law? Do we have that one here?
I do not have that in front of me. There are some communities in Kansas that have put up a sign with a motor vehicle, a bicycle, and then next to it say 3 foot, it's the law.
I think we're gonna
Clearance.
put some of those on our vehicles so that, to reinforce that it is the law that you have to have 3 feet between a bicycle and a car. Though as a person who rides his bicycle in El Dorado, everyone gives you, it's a great place to ride a bike.
We're looking at about putting up 50 or so signs if we move forward with this, and restricting on-street parking on Tawanda Summit Country Club Road. There are some possible alternatives we can do that would accommodate some on-street parking with just putting the bike symbol down on the pavement, similar to what you see at the school zones, maybe every once in a while. The roadways are generally wide enough for a parked vehicle, a bicycle, and 2 vehicles going side by side. However, they aren't wide enough to really mark out a full dedicated 8-foot bike lane with a 8-foot parking stall. And with infrequent on-street parking on Country Club Road, at least south of Post, of course, majority of that is a golf course. I think it might make sense just to maybe start with the signage, look at some alternatives for some pavement marking on those. I think those other areas like 3rd Avenue and Summit are gonna be difficult to remove on-street parking at some of those places.
And I think that's what I think the commission said, put up signs, and let's see how that goes, and we'll paint streets later. And so the update is, I think you've already told us, put up signs, and we just haven't done it yet. But we've got a plan,
And Brad's ready to make signs. I think he's got the updated templates, so.
So we actually make the sign, what kind of costs we got in it, that's the thing I was wondering.
He's got the cost of the blanks, and I'm really not sure what those are. You can buy a pre-made sign for around $20, what I was looking at. So if he's just providing the material, I'm sure it's quite a bit less than that.
And Mike, we bought the machine, we make all our own signs. And we checked the cost to make them versus the cost to buy them, and it was a lot cheaper. And the driver for us to buy this machine was the guide for uniform, it's called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So all the Scotts of the world and Brads of the world have an MUTCD sitting on their desk. That agency got the federal government to require that all signs by, I think last year, this year, had to be that really reflective stuff that you see. And so when we did the math to see what it cost to be compliant with MUTCD, I don't remember what it was. It was a ton, and so we bought the machine and did it in-house. I don't think we're all yet done, but we put up a lot of signs. And so we own the machine, and it's a lot cheaper for us to do it. And the software that you plug it in and print.
So there's not a lot of cost to it then. And the paint.
We also recycle our
Blanks,
signs. And so, like all the not all of them, we may have changed sizes, street signs.
So this will be your standard typical diamond shape.
And so when one of ours gets faded, or is no longer needed, we just recycle it and put something new on it.
I'm just thinking out loud, that could we kind of walk in this and not run into, maybe take one and put a few signs up and get some reaction from people and
Sure.
just see what it goes, because when it comes to, even yellow paint around, we got a lot of places we need yellow paint. Before you know it, we're gonna have a whole bunch more, so.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't like the idea, I'm just saying we wanna,
Yeah, I mean, I think that
Make
this is
sure
an opportunity to take the first couple of steps, like you said, Mayor. Look, we've got a lot of bike riders in this town, we've got a lot of runners,
yeah.
have a lot of people that utilize the bike paths, but there's areas that doesn't go, and so, that's during, when we were working on the comprehensive plan, that was really how the discussion went, was, can we find other avenues of non-vehicular transportation? How do we encourage people to get out and utilize our streets? And it's not, look, it's not conducive to all of our city streets, and I think that we get that, but there's some areas that we might be able to benefit from and really encourage that. Not only encourage some bike riding, but also encourage the safety that needs to go with it.
25 years ago, the Federal Highway Administration, their plans quit being a highway plan. It's all multimodal. It realizes that not everyone drives a car. And so railroads are part of that mix, bike paths are part of that mix, sidewalks are part of that mix. It's multimodal.
Great. Thanks, Scott.
What else do I have? So as we've talked before, we're in the middle of our kind of creation of, with the consulting company to do our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And I would encourage everyone, if you get an opportunity, to go to the city's website. There's a link to connect to take a survey for our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Or you can go to connect2025.com, or you can go to the rec department, the senior center, here,
City Hall.
where else, Tab, to fill out the survey on paper, or the library. They've got the paper survey if you don't have access online. They'll compile all that information, and that's helpful for creating this master plan for the Parks and Recreation. I think that's probably going to be still available for another week or
I
two,
think-
maybe.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I think a lot of it's gonna do too, if only 10 people take it in the next 2 weeks, that's not a good number because we already have more than that. I think we'll look at the numbers and then think about, is that representative or not?
Right.
And
So I encourage
But we
everyone
want
to get
everyone
out
to-
and take an opportunity to get involved and kind of give your opinion about Parks and Recreation. There's some great questions on there. So I would encourage that. I guess the only other thing, I think that's it, actually.
Well, and you'd asked about, last meeting, you'd asked about, again, that new business, looking at that.
Right, so I did kind of talk about, and we all talked about it a little bit after that, really the need to be proactive on looking for new businesses, and we had a great presentation, I think a good opportunity to go get some more information from Susie at the Chamber. But as we move forward, were you able to get a hold of Linda and see if she could come talk to us about?
Did, and she wasn't ready to be here tonight, but I think next meeting she'll be here, and Inc. has done some work on that, and she's gonna revisit that with y'all.
Okay.
So she'll be here to do that. So that's come along.
Okay. That's all I've got for tonight.
Herb, I've read this email about the spec building incentive
Mm-hmm,
from Inc.
mm-hmm.
And it says that their board, let's see, make sure I do this right. It was based to allow up to 6 at this time,
Yes.
and looks like we've got 5 now.
You actually have 6. You have 5 new ones
5 new ones? Okay.
and 1 that's built.
Oh, okay, that hadn't sold yet.
Correct.
I was just thinking that kind of leaves Mr. and Mrs. Farmer and with their new development, if they want to build a spec house out there, I'm sure they'd like to be in this program. That's a good program. Is there anything we could do, or would there be any interest among the rest of the commission to
Maybe I ought to,
expand this program?
maybe I ought to start by telling you about it. Maybe you two don't know about it. Several years ago, the Inc. Housing Committee, which was, I think, tasked by the city commission to look at how do we get more housing, came up with a program. It was called a spec building program. I think they borrowed it from Newton, maybe. And what it said was that if you build a spec home, from the time it's ready to occupy for the first 3 months, 6 months, you go 90 days and then we pick up for 6 months. You remember the exact
After
program?
the occupancy permits issued, you have 6 months.
And so the feedback that they were getting from builders was the risk, that the construction note risk scared them from pulling specs. And so they were happy building custom. And so this recommendation came from them to the commission to allow 4 homes to be built, and there was a target footprint. It was 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And if you did that, and there were some other requirements, but that was basically it. They would guarantee, or they'd pay your interest on your spec note for 6 months if it didn't sell. And I actually think there's, in their 90-day window, that from occupancy, there's 90 days that it's on the developer, and then the next 6 months is on the city. And so, what, with the new subdivisions, I think Chris Ninth is driving some of this, but even some others. There's a house in, actually two.
Sweet Tree. There's a
Sweet
house in
Tree.
Sweet Tree. You have 2 pulling application for Chris Ninth, as well as another individual for Chris Ninth. So you have 3 in Chris Ninth. And the other one you have out on Prairie View.
Right.
Which is
And so you have 1 existing, and now you have 5 applications in it, Inc. Well, the program's only for 4. And so the city and the Inc. were equally at risk for this interest. And if the maximum amount went out, and we even spec how much interest,
total, I think.
20,000 is our current risk today. And what they're asking for is to add 2 more houses to the program. And so to make it 6. And so that's why I spread this out. They took this action last week, and it's a recommendation. So I was going to do it during managers, but this is great. And what Nick's pointing out is that if you look at this list, if you approve it as they did to raise it to 6, should someone want to build a spec in the farmer's new subdivision, there's no more ability to do the program unless you grow it even more. And so the question, it becomes a matter of risk for you. And but so far, everyone has sold before. We have not paid any interest on any home that was pulled for this program. And I thought we had done 4. You think? So,
You know,
so far it's worked, and we've written no checks.
when we passed this, I mean, it was shortly thereafter, right after we passed this originally, we had a couple of applications, had a couple of spec homes built. First spec homes we'd had built in El Dorado in quite a while.
And I think all of those were sold before construction was
Sold
even
before
done,
construction
so.
finished, so.
not a true
It's been a successful program, and it has encouraged people to kind of get out and build some of those homes that we know buyers are looking for. So what you're saying though, Nick, is that if we were to talk about expanding this to 6, that still kind of shuts out at this
Well,
point, would shut out the farmer's edition.
Right, if we stop at 6, then until one of these other ones runs out, then they wouldn't be able, and I didn't read the whole, I assume that you have to apply before you start building and all that. And I would think new subdivision, they're gonna wanna get a spec house or 2 going out there. I know I would.
We could limit it to one builder, one house.
Kinda like the idea of that.
Well, but we've,
under the,
I know what we've done, but we've also gone from 40,000 to 60,000 at risk.
I think the reward, to me, the reward, risk relates to reward, and I think the reward, potential reward.
If they sell, it's a win-win. Like I said, we haven't
Well,
lost anything on it.
I know,
Yeah.
if pigs had wings, they'd be eagles, but I think the reward outweighs the risk on this, and we wanna get our subdivisions going, and I'm in favor of upping it.
Dave, okay, let me see if I understand what you're saying. So, going forward, you're okay having more as long as it's one per builder, or you just think the program ought to be set up that you can only have one house in it at a time? And so I guess I want to understand what that
If we only had one builder in town, we could have 4 under him,
Right.
which some people would look at as, helping the rich get richer. All of a sudden, we got 2 builders in town. Well, now they split it, well, then we got a 3rd one coming from out of town, and maybe we got another 4th one coming from out of town. Well, are we gonna protect the in-town ones and not have it to the out-town ones, or is it just the exclusive first come, first serve? My problem with trying to take I think we had $40,000 budgeted. Odds were that, I think we rolled the dice that we hope we don't have them if economic times got bad. That's probably 40 grand going bye-bye. It should work to the benefit, and it should stimulate. But now we've moved it to 60,000, then we move it to 80,000, and we move it to, our exposure just keeps getting bigger. And is it benefiting only a few? And the other few over here that want to get in it can't because they've bought they've got it. And I'm not being critical of any of these builders. It's just, I'm standing way back looking at this thing of being as fair as we can be and make it as big as we can be.
And that's my question. So if we had 8 builders, is that okay? Or you really like the size of the program right now, and that maybe the modification is 1 per person and that we still limit it at 4? I'm trying to glean to
Yeah,
your thoughts.
I don't know what the magic number is because this was for stimulation of the economy and getting people to build but now is it turning into subsidized safety net for building new houses in El Dorado? Okay, so where do we draw? How big we cast a net out there, and how many people we say, come on in? The taxpayers are ready to cover you.
I like your thoughts. I mean, I don't know, I guess what the magic number is either, but
Yeah, I don't know if 6 or 8, 9, 10, 15, 20.
but
I think just to clarify though, that our exposure in this, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but our exposure in this is only 30, at 6 houses, only 30,000
Yes.
in the city's exposure.
Right.
I mean, we go from, our current commitment is 23,600. We go from that to $30,000. So we go up $6,400.
And it's exposure.
And
Exposure.
I guess
No.
we have a partner in this, so there should be some discussion in this apartment, a partner, on how far they want to go.
Oh, and I think the question for you all, and not necessarily tonight, I mean, you all saw, it's a week old, I mean, if you're not comfortable, I think you need to have this discussion, and so I'm not telling you to do anything tonight unless you want to. What you've been asked is for 6. What Nick's saying is, if you approve the list in front of you tonight, that does not include any Ted Farmer's subdivision. And so, what do you think about that? And are you, and so to me, it's, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Dave, and that's the question for y'all. How much exposure do y'all feel comfortable with? I mean, heck, y'all remember this first discussion. I mean, there was discussion on the 20.
yeah.
And so I think that, again,
I personally, and I like some of those thoughts, and I'd like to talk to a few people and just get a little bit of feedback, and then maybe by the next meeting, get in touch with you and let you know kind of more firmly where I'm standing with it.
I think a little time and a little discussion with everybody, we may be able to come up with a number. I mean, whether 1 house per builder is the answer, or make 10 slots available. You know, I mean,
I think the
I don't know the correct answer.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I mean, and
I think the encouraging information that we get here, though, is that we've got 1 on right now. And if, let's just look at 4, the 1 on, and then the top 3, the first 3 that are listed here, there's 4 homes, spec homes, that are in 4 different developments or 4 different parts of town. So it is encouraging that we've got more building permits being pulled now. We've got people willing to do some stuff. So that's encouraging to me. I think it's a good thing, so.
I mean, we were surprised that we didn't have 4 the first day it rolled out. It
Yeah,
seemed-
it took a while.
took a while to get going.
yeah, I was
But-
surprised that we didn't have
4 that
4
day.
applications in a week later.
Yeah, now having, 20, 30 plus lots available to be built on.
It makes the difference, right? I
Makes
mean,
a
we talked about
difference.
at the housing committee meeting, buildable lots, good buildable lots for these, so. I
Just
think it's a
to
good
me,
opportunity.
if you look at the numbers, you've got, if I'm doing this, you've got about $1.3 million worth of spec houses here, and what would our total be, $30,000?
For 6.
For, well, I'm just looking at these 5
Oh, yeah.
that's on
Your
here.
total exposure for those 5
5,
with the 1 you already got is $30,000.
$30,000 on 1.3 million, and to me, that's a pretty good deal.
And you gotta remember, the only way we're gonna spend that is if
They don't
things
sell.
go in the tank,
Yeah.
okay?
And we've already been in the tank.
And I think that one
We
of
weren't
the,
spending any
So
money
we're
though.
clawing our way out of the tank.
and one of the concerns, again, that maybe needs to be brought up again, there's someone reviewing these plans. It's Inc. Housing, is that who's doing it?
Yeah,
Or
there's
you and
a-
Dave, or, there's something about, there was concern about a house being built that couldn't sell. And so there was something about,
Yeah, it's myself and Linda Jolly and a couple local realtors. And there's one other, I think, open position on it, but we have reviewed these plans, and there's criteria about the basement needs to be plumbed, and that there needs to be framing in place in the basement so people can visualize what that would look like. There needs to be accommodate off-street parking, encourages it to meet the comprehensive plans and the way the home is structured. That has to be 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The square footage has to be compatible with the subdivision. So not necessarily building the 1,300 square foot home, but the homes around it are larger in size, and that's what it calls for.
Also, so that everybody, we went over this a couple years ago when we passed this, but just to remind everyone that's listening, because we've got such a huge audience, it's not just new developments, that infill areas are also eligible for this program. So if you are wanting to build a home in an infill lot, get a hold of engineering and talk to Scott and see what it would take to.
Well, yeah. 'Cause we
Well,
don't have
hey,
more
get on the
spots.
list. You get on the list.
Well, and I think,
Because here's the thought, right? So the one that's on there now, it finishes, it sells tomorrow, there's an open spot. So hopefully, we continue with the track record that we've created with the 4 homes that have come into this program, and we keep moving forward. I'm not saying that we open this up to 10 homes right now. I'm not implying that at all. I'm saying is, if you have an opportunity and you have a desire to build an infill home or a spec home, get a hold of Scott and see what programs are available. That's the reason that we put this incentive program together.
Okay.
That's enough for me.
I was pleasantly surprised coming off a vacation a couple weeks ago to see that Olive Street was torn up and getting rebuilt. Of course, I called Herb immediately. And I want to just say that job, or that street job project went very nicely, very quickly. And so kudos to APAC, I guess.
And adding on to that, I had 2 people stop me Sunday and tell me how great that was, and they also complimented us on North Summit also. Same people.
So it was nice to see
One
that.
of them never compliments us on anything.
Oh, you know him too?
Oh, yeah, I've known him all my life.
But no, that was a pleasant surprise, because I didn't know it was coming down the pike, other than just mentioning it here in the new business sections every once in a while. I had something else, but I forgot it, so that's
Well,
enough.
and when, you all talked about it and we went out and looked at it, and there were parts of it that needed a bunch of work, and there were parts of it that weren't as bad. But and again, it's about the sales tax. The budget contains $600,000 a year for street improvements. What happened here was some years we spent 425, and there was enough buildup in this that the concern that you all expressed, and then our looking at the road, we essentially emptied that pot. So with that in North Summit, so I say all the time, as a taxpayer, I want to pay taxes when you need it, and don't necessarily want to pay taxes so the government can put it in their bank. It sits in my bank as good as it does theirs. And so there was such consensus on the board, we just went ahead and did it. And so we can't have any more of them. So if we have another street that really needs to be done, it'll have to work its way through a budget process.
And I assume, I've kind of remembered what I was going to ask now. I assume that we keep a rotating list that is going to move forward every year on picking streets that begin to show more deterioration than what maybe they should have.
We go out and look at them. Usually it's Brad, Scott, and I, and we know when everything has been done on every street, at least for a long time.
A long time. And when we review our CIP, when I talk to you all about the residential sales tax street program, you'll notice a lot of times the first couple of years I'll identify streets, and then getting down to that future, I just kind of coin residential street improvements. Because as we've seen this sales tax evolve and all of these streets get improved in El Dorado, we're starting to come back to these streets that were done 30 years ago initially on the sales tax program. So really want to take that a case-by-case basis. A street like Olive can deteriorate quickly in the certain portions where it was as bad as it was. So really taking a hard look at those every year and trying to evaluate them and get your most critical ones, your highest traffic areas, and the ones that are going to give you the biggest bang of your buck in investing a mill and overlay versus a seal of some sort or just crack filling.
And then like Summit, where we made lots of attempts on it, and then finally had to rebuild the road. The mill and overlay just didn't work because the base was suspect enough that it took doing the normal to figure out that wasn't good enough up there, and we needed to do more. And so you hope for the best, and then when that doesn't work out for you, you do what you got to do to get a good street at the end of the day.
Well, we know that Third, and then we moved to Olive 30 years ago. Third was your first street. Olive was your second street, and then I think we did High, Emporia, and Topeka were somewhere around in that vicinity. I've noticed on Emporia, of course, they've had so many gas cuts in it. It's basically a square patch as you drive down it, but when they had cut the asphalt, at some points in that cut, asphalt was only 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick. It was really, really thin. And is that a norm for those streets, or we kind of got a little bit
If it was
shorted, or?
you're not talking about the patch itself, the
I'm
asphalt.
talking about the street cut, because I was just amazed that street held together with this much asphalt. I mean,
The paving standards kind of evolved over the years, and early on, I think you had city staff that recommended complete tear-outs of roads and rebuilding them with up to 9 inches of asphalt. And then you had other individuals saying, let's see how far we can spread these dollars. And talking to Bruce Remsburg was here when that started. They're really trying to find a mix and experiment a lot over those first few years of what will give us some years, but be the most cost effective. And some of those streets may have 2 to 3 inches of asphalt with a fly ash modified subgrade, and they just don't hold up that well. And some of those are the streets we're hitting again.
well, what I guess I'm asking is it normal to put 2 layers of asphalt down and do it that way, and you get a lot stronger street by putting 2 layers versus 1 thick layer?
Different.
Really, you want
It's a
depth.
different material.
2 different materials?
And you want that depth, and by doing it in two lifts too, you really try to get the nicest, smoothest ride. And the thinner you can get that final lift, the better for the smoothness factor of the road.
So when we go forward, and I assume, and the reason I'm asking you if you're keeping track of and looking at it, because all the older streets are obviously in the same condition at Third and Olive are. I mean, they're getting deteriorated. Are we gonna use that method the second time around? Due to the fact we don't have a lot of curb rebuild, it's just putting in asphalt, the 2-tier on residential, or is that just like for our main streets?
What we'll do is core it and take a look at the base. Like, just this year, the 600 block of Summit, that was a road that had a couple inches of asphalt on it for a very high traffic road. And a few years back, Public Works tried to profile mill to smooth it out because it was so rough. And that's where this year, we finally had the funds setting there. We were able to tear that thing all the way out and really build a base layer of some larger aggregate at the bottom, 6 inches of crushed concrete, and some reinforcing grid through that, and then a full 6 inches of asphalt, knowing that that road carries a lot of traffic. It's had issues, and it shouldn't have ever had just a 2-inch overlay put on a clay soil.
And didn't you tell me that, and again, I may be remembering, didn't you do 2 inches of mill on Olive and 3 inches of asphalt?
We did, there was a
And
lot,
so,
yeah.
kind of to your point,
Okay,
we
And a lot
we
of
do
those-
what we can.
okay.
In a lot of those, we try to, even by milling a little deeper at the curb edge and milling a little less at the crown, we can increase the crown, put a thicker lift to asphalt, and still make all these tie-ins,
Okay.
so.
Well, it certainly is a joy to drive across now. The other question that I had, that when we did Main Street, and I mentioned this, that a lot of our sewer concrete pads in the middle of the road, why is there such a drop-off on those, especially South Main?
Like in the parking area, Not
Make a
in the
right
driving
turn
lane?
off of Olive onto Main Street and hit both of those manholes, and tell me if that's the way it ought to be.
there's some that are, have a bump in the parking area, for sure.
No, this is in the turning lane of, right off Olive.
Okay, I
And,
guess.
and the asphalt is higher than the manhole?
No.
Other way around?
Yeah, asphalt's higher, manhole's low.
Should
And they've been that way since day one, and I
Some of
mentioned
the-
it earlier.
Some of those down there are the type where it's an integrated storm sewer box that really can't be adjusted. And when you go back to talk about putting a thicker lift to asphalt, we try to raise that crown each time and get a little more asphalt in the center.
Yeah,
I think
these
he's
look
talking-
like just poured slabs they go in.
Yeah.
but-
I think
I'll
he's
have
talking
to take
about
a look at it.
sewer.
There's no doubt, there's some that are in the parking
Well,
area
You
that
you
are,
drive over those two on a right turn going south off Olive, and you tell me if that's the way you want your streets remembered. Now,
I will go home
I'm being
on
the
my
bad
way.
guy right now. I just praised you for great streets, but I do want to point out that they were not like that before. And I've driven over and over them, and they're just bad. So I don't want to be mean to the city staff or anybody else. I just am saying it wasn't there before we put the asphalt.
Well, that's not the plan.
Yeah.
That wasn't the plan,
Well,
I'm
okay,
sure.
but I'm
Now, I
just
don't-
telling you the result.
Did we even,
So you
did we
guys can
even
check that
replace
out.
those? Yeah, we'll check it out.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm done.
That's interesting, talking about streets, because I remember when they talked about 8 to 9 inches, and you're talking 2 and 3 inches there, Scott. You know, it kind of scares me, how many of those do we have around town?
A lot.
And,
We do
Our s-
have a lot. And when, I mean, I'm thinking about up by,
see, and I always
by
was led to
him.
believe when we started that whole program, this is, all these streets, I remember the diagram, they showed how we were supposed to do it and everything, so.
there's certain ones that have a good base structure
Yeah.
and can handle less asphalt thickness. If we're building new though, there's a standard for a long time, if you're tearing out and building all new,
Yeah.
was 9 inches of asphalt. We've scaled that back to 6 inches now, just because the cost of asphalt, and we're able to do a little different things with sub-base. But there are areas that you can get, that we were able to put over the past, in the past, they were able to put 3 inches of asphalt that held up on a sturdy base. It gave you 30 plus 40 years of service, which was
Yeah.
acceptable.
but it's the hardest thing on your residential streets is our trash truck. I mean, that's the big weight.
And I think a big thing for a lot of years, you didn't have the attention to that, and I don't want to say minimal maintenance, but, like your crack filling and your slurry seals, and that you're seeing start to happen more often now. And with that increase in sales tax up to 600,000, 500,000 is going to the major rehab, the new asphalt. 100,000 of that's going to crack sealing, different seal types to preserve those roads for a longer time before they need major work.
Is that 600,000 a year enough for the next 10 years? because this is a big investment. I agree with you.
They're just, when
Gotta
when we
maintain.
renewed the sales tax, there just wasn't that much, I mean, without changing some of the property tax relief, there just wasn't that much room to ask for
Anymore.
more.
Yeah. That's something we need to keep on our mind somehow, because that's a big deal. Do we ever have any money, this is kind of on streets here, for non-standard streets? You know, there's streets out there that don't fit the deal, that just sits there. And I know we did a little work down on Oak Street, I think, didn't we, Herb, towards 12?
Yeah, and
And you know, down Oak Street from there, when you go to the railroad tracks, that's terrible. And I know there's other streets around, and I don't know, there ought to be a list of
what
something to work it with that too.
And what your policies say is that if you don't want to become a regular street, or you don't want that asphalt, then it's turn it back into gravel. And so we have turned some roads back into gravel because you can maintain gravel. You can't hardly maintain half an inch or an inch of 10 coats of slurry seal. And that's what you have up on Oak. And so we do go up and we spend an inordinate amount of money on patching the holes in non-standard streets. I guess if I pulled the numbers, I think you'd be shocked at the amount of asphalt we put in holes around town on non-standard streets, and it's really, it's not consistent with the policy. And I think OT used to slurry seal them, and he just kind of said, needs to be done, and I'm going to do it. And so I wasn't comfortable doing that because, you know, when I got hired, it was do what's in the book and everything's great. And so while the commission's modified that some, no one's ever come up and told me to do that. But I think,
It's just getting worse all the time.
yeah, it is.
I don't have the answer to it other than somehow we've got to set so much aside a year and start a list or something and decide exactly what
And
we're doing out at the cemeteries. Is that something that we could do on those kind of roads? I don't,
Sure you could. And in fact, we have done kind of that on Griffith and, what is that runs behind the park? Locust. And so we've gone in there, we milled those, turned them into gravel, and then working with our partner who does Reclamite with us, he's tested products down there, and they've gotten hard again. And when you put millings on and you drive on them, they'll get hard again, not like an asphalt road, but like a whole lot more than untreated gravel. And so I think so, and I'm still, I think that there's been a willingness on the commission to talk about unimproved streets, and so I'm not convinced that there isn't a solution out there, but you're going to have to think about how you justify it. And and so I think that y'all want real streets everywhere. And we just have a long history of the way it's been done. And I think that the world's been spinning. And we ain't getting there. And I think, as I think the people on Douglas have been asked, and they didn't want that expense for a standard street. Did Norris, did we ask them? There was some other street.
You've had Eighth Avenue, you've had that have protested out Douglas, Topeka, didn't even get to the
Oh, yeah,
process.
Topeka. And so you've had, and so it's about how do you, what's the solution? And I don't know it, but when people come in and tell you all, like they did on Topeka, that we like our bumpy road because it reminds us that we're in the country, I mean, I can't, just because I want to live on a smooth street, there are people that came in here and told y'all they want to live on a bumpy street because it was like living in the country. And so, you know, I've had, my personal preference on power lines is that they're buried. I didn't want them in the air. I thought it looked better with no power lines in the air. But I've had commissioners tell me it looks like progress to them, and they like power in the air. That told them that your city had power, and that was important. So, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Actually, the man who told me that was a guy named Paul Renz, and I was 30 years old, and he was too. And so so I don't know the answer, but I think that it bears more discussion, and
It's not getting any better.
it's not getting better, and it's not gonna get a lot better. The best solution is turn them to gravel, and we'd run a motor grader on it once a month. Or harden them.
Yeah. Okay, I want to end up on a good point tonight. Halloween, I thought went well. I know I had lots and lots of trick-or-treaters. Something that really caught my eye that I was very happy about, I seen a police car pull up and was talking to some kids. And I listened to that conversation, and you'd be proud to live in El Dorado the way that was handled. So I've never seen a police car around on Halloween. So that doesn't mean I'm going out looking, but I seen one this time, and they was,
And I think, unfortunately, most of the time you interact with a policeman, it's a negative situation.
yeah.
And they really are our friends and neighbors, and they don't have any reason to want to pick on you. And the only way they can do a good job is everyone's got to view them as their friend and neighbor and have trust. And so that's part of that, Mayor. We got to be able to talk to people, and we don't want to always be the bearer of bad news.
I like what I've seen.
Thank you.
City manager's report.
Okay, one thing, let's see here, did that. I just wanted to make one short comment. I've had people call me, and they got called by their friends in Augusta who believed that we had cut their water supply off, and that's why their water's crummy. And I read the article in the paper. I thought it was perfect. I understood it. It's just they're managing their water supply. And so they're pulling water now out of Santa Fe Lake and maybe Augusta Lake, and it has some taste and odor problems, and much like Cheney, I may add. And so the water in Augusta doesn't taste good today, but the city of El Dorado hasn't done anything to them. We will sell them all the water they want, and this is something completely Augusta and not El Dorado. And so if your friends call you from Augusta, it's not our fault.
So just to clarify, our water is still awesome.
My glass is empty. It's El Dorado water. It was wonderful. There were no taste and odor problems in my glass of water today.
Our water is awesome and cheap.
And cheap. That's all I had, Mayor.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
I move we adjourn.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion and second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.